we'll call it. Okay, we'll call a special meeting of council to order. It's May 11th, 5 p.m., 5:02, and we have a quorum present. Marina will act as secretary. I'll act as chairman. Okay. Motion to call the meeting to order.
Moved.
Second. All in favor?
Yes.
All right. Okay. Item number 2 is adoption of the agenda. Motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Discussion. I believe we were to add the public participation.
Yep.
Suggest that. Good with that. Anything else?
Front and back.
It's fine.
Yeah. From back, yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Just for public participation, an update, which I suppose we're going to add one more question, with the budget email address. I just reached out to council and I talked with our works manager on a couple of items that were asked about. I believe he replied directly. And the other questions were from a previous draft, we have already been mediated.
Okay. And you'll address those
I can, yes, I don't have the.
maybe once we get into the report. Okay.
So that's four items we received.
We received 3 emails in total and 1 email from Ms. Dyer is testing if the inbox actually works.
Oh, okay. And it did. There it is.
So should we adopt, and if you have more, we'll hear them?
Okay. All in favor? All right.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, Marina, if you can open it up to public participation. There's no one in the gallery, so we'll go online if anyone has a question. Okay, no hands. Give a moment.
Going. Oh, there's one on the Roger hands.
Okay. Norma, if you'll unmute and ask your question.
I sent a bunch of questions into the budget line. I'm wondering if those are going to be answered or whether I need to ask them now.
So Norma, thank you for sending in your questions. There were a few at the top of your question list that have been addressed or clarified in subsequent budget versions. I'm happy to discuss that. And just asking, I did contact our public works manager to talk to you about the stormwater questions you had and the drainage. Did you get a response?
Okay, how will I know the answers that have taken place during the meeting when we didn't have any notice about the meeting coming up? Like, if you're not going to answer them, do I have to go and listen to the recordings?
Hold on. Unfortunately, in front of me, I don't have access to my budget email. I don't have your questions printed out. I have reviewed it and forwarded it to council and to public works. If you have a specific question, maybe we can talk about it.
Okay, what about general fund public works note 2? Is the $57,000 budgeted going to complete the Bayview Bridge rehabilitation?
Right. So that was one of the questions that I'd asked our public works manager to respond to you. I spoke with them this morning, and it's my understanding that he was going to reach out to us directly to answer your question. I don't have that in front of me at the moment.
Okay, another one is solid waste budget note 4. I don't understand why bear issues would drain the surplus, since bear problems are addressed by bylaw officers who are budgeted elsewhere. And also under the solid waste budget, I think the surplus would be well spent on extending recycling options as a service to residents and in accordance with Recycle BC. I think that's money well spent.
Thank you, Norma. And I think I can answer both of those questions in one response. So that note that is discussing the potential that the public works yard will be open for recycling on Saturdays. So the potential, how it's just phrased in that note is that, okay, we have a surplus, but maybe it's going to go down. if we open the public works yard for recycling on Saturdays, there's gonna be a labor cost associated with that. And so that's why that note or comment is in there.
Okay, that would
Joe,
be
can I-
contributing to Recycle BC, which is great.
Okay, so Norma, if I can just comment on that. So we have budgeted in previous years for the workshop to be open on Saturdays through the winter. The only increase would be is, when I explained this before, or should be, is if we do the recycling program, then we'll have the next 3 months, the first, through the summer, the best one. We'll have the first 3 months of winter, where you'd have to extend that program.
Right.
And that was what I asked, that we include additional budget for the first 3 months of winter in the workshop budget. So it should be all in the hours already.
Great, that's, it's been addressed, it's been discussed, which is great. That's the information or feedback I've received from Public Works. I really don't have any further comment on that.
Okay, we did discuss it that way in an earlier meeting. I think the way your comment was worded has changed in this one, by the way.
With the workshop being open, does it not also expand the possible things that can be collected at the workshop? Was that in the works as well?
Yes, that's the recycling portion.
Yeah.
Which would
Okay.
at the end of the year through winter.
Norma, anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay, we'll move right into the meeting. Item number 3 is the bylaws. We have motion on the 2023 to 2027 5-year financial plan bylaw number 629, 2023. That the 2023 to 27 5-year plan bylaw number 629, 2023 be introduced and read for the first, second, and third time. We have motion.
Could I,
We'll just have a motion, then we can discuss it.
I'll move that. Yeah.
Okay, second.
Sure.
Okay, discussion, and perhaps even before we have a discussion, we could either hear from Joe or we can jump right in. What would you council prefer?
I can give you a quick, very brief overview. The comments that were provided by council in our last meeting have been incorporated into the financial package. I did have a discussion this morning with Councilor Broughton about the timing the work to be done on Lions Bay Beach project revitalization. Councilor Abbott had requested that I review correspondence from David Lee to look at timing or costs associated with that. And then after my discussion with Councilor Broughton, we went back to just the original $200,000 that's expected to be spent in the current our fiscal year to December 31st, 2023, with the remainder to be spent in 2024. I think where the confusion was in respect of that timeline was that the grant fiscal plan is April 1st to March 31st of the following year.
Yeah. We came to that conclusion last night when David was talking about the March fiscal year. So yeah, I guess I helped confuse it by trying to clarify it. If we'd left it where it was, the first guess, we were probably right.
So I apologize.
back to where it is?
Yeah, I forgot.
So there's a revised version now, and you put it back.
I do have it right here. That's why I prepared just to make.
Okay. Is there any other changes, or can we work with the version? I've just spent the last hour and a half trying to go through this version.
Yeah, that is the only major version change. I also, well, no, that's for later. I've incorporated your comments, everybody's comments from the last meeting into this. I'm happy to field any sort of questions or notes that you have to want to follow up.
Okay, why don't you slide us those then? We might have to look through that.
So this reflects the original $200,000 to be spent on the Lions Bay revitalization project.
Okay, thank you.
So have you got some highlights in here as to where it's different from what you sent us yesterday?
So the only line item that would be changed is the amounts that are coming from grants, because and then the offset in capital expenditures, which was before I had $566,000 for the Lions Bay Beach revitalization project. Now it's going back to the other talking about.
Then the other difference from the version we got 2 days ago, or yesterday, I guess, to the previous version was you added back in the platform, correct?
I did add in the clad building. I did discuss it with Andrew Oliver today. And he's confident that the renovation work will be completed by the end of the year. So I've included that in the capital expenditure sheet, which is the last page on your package, and included with the offset in grant.
Are we bouncing around a little bit here? Because what do we? So this is the in the agenda, you got the consolidated financial plan, which is the first page and summary page of this, which is what we've been working on, well, for a while, but certainly three goes in the last week and a bit. So are we, when we're looking at the consolidated plan, are we expecting to be accepting this as the budget?
Unless there's any changes to the property tax rate, this is what incorporates every single comment that's been provided from either a council member or the finance committee.
Okay, so we should be discussing this before we move into the property tax bylaw then. Okay. Okay.
So we, Joe, on the last page, we've dropped 366 from the Lions Bay Beach Park revitalization, right?
Yes, so that was again, VoLB had provided a cost estimate for $599,000 completed within one fiscal period. However, that fiscal period was different than our fiscal period. That was from April 1st, 2023.
Okay. So that's the only change, and that's reflected on page 1 under grants as well.
Yes, and the other change which is brought your attention to is the clad building is included in there.
Right.
That's offset with grant funding.
Which is offset in,
Yeah.
Okay, the other change we discussed that hasn't happened is the $75,000 that it's in capital project attributable to additional work on the Bayview Driveway Bridge should really have been moved back to where the other, it's a maintenance item. Right? We discussed that in the meeting, remember? If you go to search for the word bridge. Yeah, if you go to the General Fund Public Works, you've got a long story about the bridge explaining why it's a maintenance item, not a CapEx item. The bulk of the cost is sitting there. And then Carl admitted he asked for the extra 75, but he asked for the CapEx and he was wrong. It should really be maintenance. Be consistent. Right? We discussed that in the last meeting.
This would be under Public Works note, what?
Under the Public Works Note 1.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't affect the overall budget. It's just sitting in the wrong bucket. Those.
We'll check that.
That's page 17 of the package. Page 17 of the electronic package, the last one.
It'd be 16 on the paper.
Oh, yeah, page 16 on the paper copy. I know, but the notes are different. But it can't be page 16, it's recreation.
Yeah.
What page it is on the paper copy? But we're not in the same order.
numbered.
Is there numbers on those, or is it hiding under the staple?
It's under the staple.
Okay, page 16.
It's a little bit of a report of this.
General Fund Public Works. Okay, so page 9 of this paper copy for you guys.
Okay, it's okay. Where are we going?
Note 1.
Now, what you're saying is 149 should go where?
I'm saying that 75,000 should have been added into this line item number 1 here.
For further clarity, if you look at the very last page with the infrastructure, there's a line item for $75,000 for additional work on Bayview Driveway Bridge. And so
Under capital?
yeah, proposal that goes into an operating item.
Okay.
If I missed that, my apologies.
So we're gonna move that 75 into the Public Works General Fund.
Yes.
So is that to top that up to before 25, or are we looking at additional funds here?
So from my discussion with Nye, what was budgeted was to the 425.
Okay,
But he has an expectation or had an expectation that the longer it's delayed, the more it's going to cost realistically, which is still any of the other projects that we're working on.
was that before or after the contractor went bankrupt?
We're talking about 2 different things here. I think you were talking about the other bridge,
Upper Bayview.
Bayview Road, driveway bridge. That's,
Bayview Driveway Bridge.
yes. So the discussion about what would cost us more to do next year if we didn't do it this year is the bridge end work. It's a different discussion.
Yeah, it's 300,000.
Yeah, that's the joints, yes, was it 300, whatever it was. Yeah, bridge deck joints is the thing that's going to cost us more each year we delay it. And might cost us a lot more than 300 anyway.
Probably gonna apply to this as well.
Sure, I mean, that one we have to just get done, it's, yeah.
Is that looking like it's done at 425, or are we looking?
No, I think Carl's suggesting he needs another 75K. That's why he added it in there.
Yeah, so I'm asking whether the 75 is additional or part of the plan.
Addition.
Okay.
Okay, any other comments? Councilor Abbott?
This was the other one, but that explained. Oh. Okay, so, and then this note may have been written this way before, I'm not sure, and if I missed it, I apologize for not bringing it up now, but I just spotted this literally 10 minutes ago. I was trying to get it from me. The gas tax, we spoke about the gas tax. We said it's $630,000 or something.
Yeah, it's projected to be $650,000 by the end of next
year. $650 by the end of next year. But the note on page, I thought we had until the end of next year to spend it. That's what we were told. The note on page 7 of the electronic copy, which is under revenues, says it expires in March 2024.
Oh, so when we can ask for it, I believe that's the date that it ends, and then the budget reflects spending the money in the next fiscal period or that fiscal period. So we're expecting to receive some money up until March 2024. That'll be our last installment, and spend the money in our fiscal year.
Okay, so we're sure we don't have to spend it by March, because that's going to be difficult. We don't want to lose that money.
No, we don't, that's the last taxation period that we're gonna get reimbursement for that funding. But we do need to spend that money next year. In accordance with, because I have spoken with or had correspondence with governance about how we can get offset of that, and they will be following up on with municipalities on how they expended the funds that have been collected.
So how, and do we have any restriction on what we can spend it on?
It's climate change related.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, so we've got some work in a strategy session there.
I'm happy to forward the documentation or the grants.
I just want to make sure we have another year, because I've got a big panic thinking we're about to use them. So the use of the word expires is just a bad choice. It should be ends.
That's the last time we collected money,
Yeah, so.
and then we got to spend
Yeah,
it.
so their brand ends, but we don't, that doesn't
ends,
expire.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we need to start thinking about that. Okay, give me a second. I suppose anything else. Curly Stewart fixed to $1,000. I appreciate that. Wouldn't have minded a note saying that it's fundraised money and it's not costing taxpayers, but I'll just keep saying it so everyone hears that. Doesn't cost the taxpayers anything.
What'd you say, Neville?
Curly Stewart.
Cost the taxpayers.
Curly Stewart, costs you nothing. We donate this donation. It's fund based. Okay.
We have had some participation from the community. We've had students come in and apply for the grants. So it's
I've been meeting in an hour, well aware of that, an hour and a half. Yeah, we should talk about that before meeting.
Okay,
Okay. I had a question and I've managed to answer it. So I'm going to stop asking you why the infrastructure levy is not 10% of the taxation. It's because you add the grant in lieu into the taxation line after the calculation of the 10%. So you worked it out as well. Great minds think alike. Full self. Anyway, I finally worked it out.
So explain it.
So the when the infrastructure levy is a straight 10% of property tax. that is levied. What you see in the summary page is about $50,000 of or $60,000 of tax in lieu. Or they call it
7,000.
payments in lieu. What that means is it's BC Hydro primarily, a little bit from TELUS, a little bit from Shaw. They have an agreement bylaw approved, and this is from years ago. They pay us instead of being levied cost for whatever infrastructure they have, like as far as like property tax. They just pay us, we get a check, that's it.
But why does that come up to 10%?
Because we're not taxing.
We're not charging them we're not charging an extra 10% on what they give us. And what residents give us.
Yeah. Okay.
So why
don't we charge-
when it's actually broken out?
We haven't missed you at all. Joe's been carrying this.
Okay.
In some of the pages it's broken out when the tax increase below, then see it actually equals 10%. But when that roll up summary, for some reason it got rolled up into the same number.
That's where it's been. I'm happy to change the presentation and going forward for more clarity.
Hey, I understand that now you can just keep confusing thousands of others. Okay.
And what page is that on actually?
And what actually confuses it even further,
Oh,
in some places, like if you look on page 2, taxation there includes the parcel tax. Page 2 of the electronic copy. So that's why it's not 10% of the 1,900,000. Sometimes that line has the parcel tax in it, sometimes it has the tax in lieu in it.
The infrastructure, straight 10%. Then grants in right here.
but this would be on the electronic version under.
It's on the red.
Okay, under the revenues, yeah, okay. So, Neville, you were saying what confuses it further is what?
Well, on page, so that's on page 4, where we're going to do things explained. But on the other roll-up summary we got on page 2, revenues, the 1,947,000 revenue not only includes rent in lieu, it includes the parcel tax. We don't put 10% parcel tax either.
Okay.
Just correct. And again, as far as presentation, open to any comments on how would you'd like to resend this, that is correct. It's just how things are grouped on this particular schedule of.
Yeah, I think in future we should just make sure the taxation lines only resident tax, 10% is obvious, and math works, and put the others in a separate line items.
No worries. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. That's all I had.
Okay, Councillor Ryder, any questions?
Yeah, I mean, I think a number of residents have written in and commented, and I asked this question last time on the grants. I mean, there's an assumption of grants here that seems to be causing the numbers to
The 5-year plan you're talking about.
yeah, 5-year plan. I mean, where are the resulting obligations that we have? And how is this assumption as to these grant numbers being arrived at? These are huge numbers. I mean, we've removed the land sales. We've got borrowing there. But specifically to the grants, where are we getting these numbers?
That's dictated by the ministry. They tell us for those years you put it into grants. If you don't get them, you have to make a decision.
So you're telling me the ministry told you to put these specific numbers in here?
No, not the numbers.
Yeah.
That's how you do the process. You have a wish list of capital expenditures. There's only 3 ways to raise money:
Yeah,
grants, taxes, or borrow,
sure.
right? So unless you make a decision,
Land sales.
sorry,
Land sales.
land sales.
Yeah.
No, but I was instructed, or we were instructed to take land sales out until a decision is made. So you only have 3 methods to do it in a village like this.
Mhm.
So then you got to decide next year, what are you going to do? So the infrastructure committee has to sit down and say, how important is this?
So if we decide to put the land sales back on the table, we did more work on that.
I wouldn't do it now. You don't have a plan.
Mhm.
That's why you took it out. It was cursory discussions last year. Is that right?
Well, they've been around for many years.
So next year, could we look at that?
Next year you make a decision. Because can you get all the grants? It's unlikely you'll get all those grants. But if you do get a grant, you're going to get a pro rata grant. Like you got to put in 30, 40, 50%. The government will put in some, assuming those grants are available, but you won't know that until the next year comes along. So it's a placeholder for capital expenditures. What you do know, or you believe, is you need those capital expenditures. Question is, how do you finance it? And that's a question for the next 6 months. You have to develop a plan of what's important.
Yeah, but when you read this, I mean, you don't have the obligations listed in there. And it creates the inference that these grants are coming. I mean, so essentially, we're just balancing out the books by saying, this is the grant we need to balance our books, so we put that number in, right? I mean, we have no expectation, no reasonable, we have nothing projected.
Well, we know for a fact we won't get to those 100% grants.
That's right.
Yeah,
The higher levels of government are not going to pay for interest.
What we could do is put a 20% tax hike in. That's the other side of it. But you don't know that either. So this tells the reader, you think the capital expenditures are right now, you have a plan, you have to finance those somehow.
If you
Where are you going to get the money?
Where are you going to get the money? Now you got to start working towards it.
Yeah,
You can't have an unbalanced budget.
I'm with Marcus. I mean, one of the problems with us is to hide it as a grant is
Nobody said hide anything. We're not hiding anything. It's a placeholder.
hide. Okay, well, I'll take you the word hide. If I'm one of the residents that wrote those questions in, I would be thinking the same thing. The assumption we saying we expect to get 100% grant. We know we can't.
I had a very long or lengthy discussion with the resident who had asked that or a question originally, and was kind of walking through what the process is. We have some numbers that we're fairly comfortable with as far as capital expenditures. These are numbers that have been quoted and planned by Public Works. This is the expectation in priority of what needs to be done. So there's a cost there that we have some support for.
Mhm.
how do you fund it?
We talk about the funding side is the
You
point.
could put debt, you could move it along down the line, and put debt. Don't encumber the village. You can do that too.
But once again, you're only doing this in your 5-year plan.
Mhm.
So if you put it, if you put a line in that said debt, and you assumed, that you could get, I don't know, 2 million in grants and the rest goes to debt.
You can make any assumption you want.
Yeah.
What we do know is it's a
I
placeholder.
just think that would read better than the way it reads at the moment.
Okay, we have had a number of conversations this which are publicly available. So if somebody has a question, which I'm happy to respond to directly, but this is a conversation that's been ongoing and publicly available for a resident to review and understand.
So where's that publicly available?
YouTube. All of our council meetings are published on YouTube.
Well, you're talking about looking at the recordings of the meetings. But so,
Oh, I see.
okay, but what if you wrote that line instead of grants? What if you wrote there grants, debt, loans?
That's,
Add a line, say that.
Yeah, so then everyone knows that we don't know how we're getting the money, but those are our options. That's a more balanced view for the
Funding options.
You can't do loans. What were your 3 words?
I said grant, debt or loans. Well, that, like a debt.
No, getting in.
Or our fantasies as to grants?
The word fantasy. That's the poet talking now.
your other option, and because I was kind of, this keeps me up at night. When we debate property tax rates,
Yeah.
1%, 3%, 0%.
Yeah.
It doesn't move the needle on anything. This is, property tax is not going to fund the.
We know.
Sure.
Right.
Exactly.
So what's your real option? You're gonna, borrow debt, $10 million. I doubt that's gonna go through. And then you're carrying the nut on the interest for, God knows, 35 years. Land sales, well, the reason we were asked to take out land sales as a funding option by our finance committee, because there's uncertainty as to whether that can happen or not. So I guess the idea was to add a little bit more transparency, and I appreciate your comment, Councillor Abbott, that that line item could be more clear, that it's kind of like nebulous. But I mean, that's kind of where we're at. We have some idea of what's going to cost to keep the bridges up. Pave the roads. There's a fire truck that I'm still thinking with Barry, how are we going to actually pay for this? There are certain things that we have an idea what cost. How do you get there? It's not going to be taxed. It's going to be a special levy to the tune of every single resident paying $20,000-$30,000, or land sales, because the debt's not going to happen, because you're not going to get $10 million in debt and encumber the village for the next 3 decades.
Now, what you could do, you could assume a split leverage of 40% debt, 60% grants. You always throw that in there.
So this is something we need to work through.
But this is a long.
This is a placeholder, as you said.
Good. Well, this is strategic planning session we haven't had.
Exactly, yeah.
That's the discussion.
Yeah.
The other observation on this that I made, so we have this 5 million in 2024, 7.6 million in 2025, and then we drop right off in 26 to 1.2, and then we drop down to 300 in 2027. Well, that's not the way it's going to happen either.
That's a discussion with Public Works. This is from the 5-year plan from Public Works.
Yeah, no, you just.
So is Public Works anticipating that we're going to get everything lickety split and by
In 3 years.
26 and 27, we're just going to roll?
Public Works is expecting or asking for funding to address certain projects they've highlighted as high priority.
Yep.
And these are the periods in which they expect to incur those costs. The other thing is, a number of these projects have been kicked down the can for a number of years.
Sure.
You just haven't had a chance to be able to fund that or address it. So this is the best estimate for the highest priority projects from Public Works. And how you fund it, again, so we said, well, that's the big question, but this is what the ask is.
So the purpose of this is to focus our attention on it, to cause us to ask questions, to pay some attention to it, but not to have a perfect understanding of how we're going to do it.
Absolutely. And I would like to reiterate that this, we're very comfortable on the 2023 numbers as far as what the grants we're going to receive, the money we're going to expend.
Right.
That's pretty solid. 24 and so on is nebulous. It really, like, we have an idea of what we need to spend, but the question is, how do you get there? I would say also that the purpose of this meeting is to approve the 5-year plan and the taxation bylaws, so we can file it with the province of BC. You can amend this budget whenever you want. Purpose here is to actually give them something so that we have legislative ability to tax.
I think our goal though is to be as close as we possibly can on 2023.
Well, I think we're going to achieve your goal of achieving a somewhat imperfect understanding at least. Yeah.
Well, maybe not for 2023, but for going forward.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
forward to the strategy
the
session.
process of really closely examining 2023 is going to inform our understanding of the subsequent years. Okay.
Okay, Councilor Ryder, anything further?
I'll come back again. We'll just rotate around. That's okay.
Councilor Bowden?
Well, I want to talk about tax rate at some point. When would that be an appropriate time?
That we're looking at item number A right now. Tax rates are item B.
Okay.
So any comments?
It's tied into A though, right?
It's pretty much
Yeah.
tied into A, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so what I'd like to, what I suggested and sent out a memo about to all council was to look at a 4.5% tax rate. And my goal there was recognizing that it's not a material change to the budget, but it does send a strong message that we are really trying to get a handle on our expenses, and that going forward, that we will be in a position to really understand our finances to make, for example, we did reduce the bank cost by $4,000. We increased the interest by $96,000 with some understanding there. My belief is that we will significantly reduce the number of consultants that we're using over the next number of years. I think the Bayview Bridge is there's 3 or 4 levels of consultants involved there, which has ended up being kind of a challenge. The budget looking
3 or 4, I think there's 2, but anyway.
well. Okay. Anyway, let's look at there was seemingly multiple levels of consultants there. I think, right now we're looking at office staffing costs reduction. The Lions Bay connector is off the table at the moment. Whether that comes back in, I'm not sure. But I really think it would be really valuable to give a strong message that we're bringing our costs in line. And in doing so, I think we will put forward the message that going forward, when we ask people for significant asks for infrastructure, that they can feel confident that those are going to be well managed and that their economies are going to be respected. I've spoken several times about the fact that we are in a pretty challenging economy for some people. I recognize that we're not talking about a huge tax increase. But I think the 4.5% is a very workable number. Won't have a major impact on our village in any way, but it does send a strong message that we're taking control of our spending, and we will be providing services in a very effective and efficient way, and that going forward that we'll be doing the same as we take on some of these enormous infrastructure challenges that we have. And, we've had a lot of people step forward just in this budget process with great questions and great recommendations. And I'm feel very excited about moving forward with an infrastructure committee in tandem with a funding of a grants committee, yeah, to really look at both sides. I mean, really identifying what we need and how we're going to do it, which is what we've been wrestling with throughout this budgeting process. So whenever the appropriate time would be, I would be moving an amendment from the 7% recommended by staff to a 4.5% increase this year. And I think we'll really get a handle on what's going on. And I think next year we'll be able to really deeply understand, what our costs are and what reductions we're able to make going forward. And all those funds must move into providing necessary infrastructure. I certainly heard that from residents, have done for multiple months. And so I'm just would support that message going out.
So where's the page again where you game it out? The different tax rates and the
Page 8 on the electronic copy.
page 8?
Last page of the revenue.
Yeah.
And I've had a few discussions offline, but just to Councilor Darwin's point, property taxation is not going to move the needle on anything as far as infrastructure is concerned. That is keeping the light on.
Sure.
The infrastructure levy is a small amount you're putting away in your savings for a rainy day fund. The infrastructure to the tune currently, the ask is $18 million for the next 5 years, is not going to be funded by property tax or the infrastructure levy.
No. But it does build us up a little bit more over time, right? Yeah. Well,
Whether it's significant,
well,
I think I'm just.
I wouldn't say it's a little, it's not enough, but it's not a little, it's still.
So
The levy I'm talking about.
Oh, right. No, I'm talking about the difference. Yeah.
if you increase between what 7% or 5% or 4.5% for property tax, and then add on 10% of the after the year mentioned before on the infrastructure. I did update that, by the way, and
so that
it's
it's negligible.
It's negligible.
It depends on the property you happen to sit on, right?
Yeah, it's there is
This is the median, right?
Yeah, it's a mean, it's a mean. So it is there is a different impact on whoever owns the property because this is an average. But it's not going to move the needle on the infrastructure, which is elephant in the room. How do you pay for that?
Yeah.
So as long as we can agree to a property rate increase that keeps the light on, like with our costs, and we're trying to cut costs, that's what the property tax increases is actually doing. The infrastructure levy is a small bit for a rainy day fund. Bridge falls down, water pipe blows. Well, we got an extra, we got $2.5 million in the bank. We can address that problem immediately. But that's not a set of funds that I would suggest is open to put into infrastructure. I mean, that's disaster. Okay, then we got some money to remediate it. Big problem is got another $18 million at least. And Carl, I'm pretty sure he discussed what his opinion on this is in the long term. That are major priority infrastructure projects that have been identified and need to be addressed.
Yes. Anyway, I just think in terms of addressing where some people are in the economy right at the moment, and I have had, a number of people who appear to be, people are pretty proud, and some people are struggling with food costs, they're struggling with energy costs, they're struggling with different things, and it comes up in odd places where people are doing, one less exercise class a week in Broughton Hall because they're looking at impact over the month. So I just think it's probably highly symbolic in some cases, but I think it's recognizes our commitment to really get value for the people of Lions Bay. So however I would need to.
Would you like to propose an amendment?
Like to propose an amendment that we set the property tax rate at 5%. Would entertain a seconder.
And just to be clear, we're sitting right now with these numbers at 7.
Yes.
Effectively, right?
Do we have a second? I'll second that. And why don't we just have a discussion on it and then we can make a decision on whether we want to move it from 4.5, leave it at 7 or
4.5.
somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
Okay. So my feeling is, I'd like to see it come down from that 7. As you say, it's not going to affect our infrastructure commitments, but it may help residents in this difficult time. Joe or Ron, maybe you can give us a little bit of explanation on, we've seen some cost savings, so can that justify us moving off that 7%, coming closer to 4.5% with some of these cost savings? We know the interest, the charges. Is there others? We've talked about maybe a little bit less consultants.
It's based on skeleton staff, or not a skeleton staff, it's based on a staff that's needed. There's no skeletons there. 4.5 is not a bad number. 7 is not a bad number either. It's not going to make a big difference. You've got to do a lot of planning for your infrastructure, and that will have nothing to do with this. And if you decide next year you need to do something with property taxes or assessments, you have to do it. But I don't see anything wrong with 4.5%. I don't see anything wrong with 7 either, but 4.5 works. It's not going to get you. We've only got 7 months left in this year. I'm assuming within the next 3 months or 2 months, you're going to start talking about infrastructure and planning and financing.
I would direct your attention to Schedule A. I have conveniently prepared a all permit budget reflecting a lower tax rate. I can go down through.
Sorry, that's page 1.
Yeah, page 1, yes. So where your property tax is in taxation, the very first line, 1.8 million. We've reduced it to 4.5%. We're coming down to it's still at a operating surplus, our cash surplus, I'll call it 8.2 million. With the mover on there, capital expenditures. Your the current budget proposes 2.1 million in capital expenditures, and then there are some items that are required to be transferred to reserves. Your wastewater treatment plant money, the infrastructure levy, the 10% goes straight into the infrastructure reserve fund, the gas tax reserve fund. So end of the day, it's that one line of capital and expenditures, which is eating up your cost. So the property tax is currently enough to fund operating expenditure. It's what you want to do with capital expenditures. That's really what it comes down to.
But for 2023, reducing the 4.5% has no effect.
No, it's negligible.
But 30K.
Councillor Abbott.
It has no effect on spending. We can still finance the spending. Yes, it's 30,000, but it doesn't change how we're going to manage the office or the public works.
Just some thoughts in general. I get the need, right? We're going to start paving roads. There's a lot of stuff we need to do. So I get the need, and I know we have to pass a budget tonight. We certainly have to pass a tax. We have to do that tonight. I get the need. On the last council, 4 years in a row, I voted against the budget and the tax increase. And I did it because the council, I didn't get enough support in council to look at what I kept calling the other side of the equation. And that was, did we have the right number, right amount of staff? Are we spending the right amount of money on our operating costs in the right places? And no one wanted to look at it. So for that reason, I voted against it. When we started this cycle, we seemed to be taking the same numbers from last year and assuming we were going to pay overtime and whatever and spend it, all the backlog of savings were going to get spent. We fixed that. Now I have some savings in there. Someone asked me today, a resident called me up today and said, it reminded me of the 4 years what I did, and asked me, what confidence did I have in our current 2023 budget. Now, I disagree with Michael. I don't think it's dialed in. I think these numbers have moved backwards and forwards through these meetings. And I get they're supposed to. It's part of the meetings. But, we got backs to the wall and in a week and a half, we've tried to ram this through. And I don't have a confidence in it. I'll be quite honest. I don't have that level of confidence that I've had in previous councils, where we did this steadily over 3 months. Whether it's should be 4.5% or 7%, I don't know the answer to that. And as we all said, it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. I genuinely just have a lack of confidence in this budget, to be honest, and the way we've got to this point. I think the increase should be as the minimum what inflation is. When we were talking about the CPI the other day, turned out it's around 6 or something. Yeah. So I don't think we should ever be going less than inflation. That's taking a step backwards. So 7 sounds like the right number.
It is below whatever municipalities.
It's below what other municipalities are doing. And if we had on a regular year when we were fully staffed and done all the maintenance stuff we believe we need to do, we should have been 7% higher this year, 6 point whatever the number was. So yeah, I don't see the need to change it. The biggest deal in the world either.
Okay, Councillor Ryder.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard about all kinds of efficiencies that we're supposedly gaining. I don't know that, I don't have a lot of confidence in that. We supposedly have some savings in, or some increased revenue in interest and savings in fees. That will fluctuate. That's the interest rate environment. I think our costs are going to be substantially higher. And when we see the AP report for the second quarter, we might be giving our head a shake. I think this has been enormously compressed. We got our backs up against a wall here. We haven't had adequate time for public input. We could have and should have had that. We've been pushed by our advisor since he came on board to get this going. It should have been done much sooner. I think that it's a drop in the bucket, the infrastructure part, but we need to start, we need to fill that bucket. I think it's better to take a little pain up front than massive pain later. So I agree that, one resident asked me, how can you raise taxes if, where are the amenities, where are the services or the amenities? And, we don't have a lot of them compared to neighboring municipalities, but we simply have an increase in costs everywhere. We're all experiencing that. So I think we need to go at least the inflation level. I don't like it any more than anybody else. I recognize also that we can, we're trying to get the tax bylaw done, and that we can amend these items as we go forward. But I think we need to start filling those buckets.
Okay, we'll call the question. All in favor of 4.5%? Aye. Opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, defeated. So the 7% is back on the table. Any other comments on the 7%? Or I call the question?
Could I put an alternate
Sure.
forward? I suggested inflation markets seem to be around that. Do we drop it to 6? So we're not, we pegging where we think the actual additional costs are.
Okay, with an amendment, 6% on the table.
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Or
Any discussion?
Councillor Broughton,
I think it's moving in the right direction. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Councillor Abbott,
I'm good.
Councillor Ryder.
I'm good.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, opposed, motion carried. Okay, we'll move to item number B, tax rate bylaw number 630, 2023. Motion that the tax rate bylaw 630, 2023 be introduced and read first, second, and third time. Before we move to that, so just a review here, we approved, the motion was to approve the first, second, and third reading. In the past, we've called a vote on each of those. Do we want to call a vote on that just to
I think
make sure?
Formally, yeah.
I think
If that's the
so.
procedure we should.
I think we've done that in the past. Okay. So that was the first reading. The second reading, all in favor? Sorry.
The first we haven't done.
First reading, yeah.
So, okay, first of all, before we read it, we're reading it at 6%, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll call the motion on the first reading at 6%
As amended.
as amended.
Yeah.
Okay, second, or a motion, second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry, all in favor? Okay, favor, opposed? The first reading?
I'm going to abstain
You're abstaining.
I will abstain as well.
for the reasons I explained earlier. I understand we need to get this done, but I don't have the level of confidence in the budget process we've gone through. Can't stand behind it. I do know we need to pass a tax bylaw. And when we both understand what abstaining means.
Okay, just clarity, Marina, with 2 votes for, is that carried?
And abstention is a positive vote. Yeah.
Extension gets counted as a positive vote.
Positive. vote.
All right, carried then.
A moral vote of protest.
Right.
Okay. Motion for the second reading
As amended,
as amended,
I'll put that forward.
second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, carried.
Abstentions.
You know what's happening next.
All right, motion for the third reading
As amended,
as amended.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, carried. Okay, we'll move to item number B, tax rate, motion that the tax rates bylaw number 630, 2023 be introduced and read for the first, second, and third time. Motion will do for the first. We'll start at that. Motion.
put it forward.
Okay, second.
Aye.
All right, discussion. Joe, anything you'd like to?
No,
Work to us.
we'll amend it to 6% and property taxes. I don't think there's any discussion on utility rates, and I basically agree that the 5% across the board is the correct number.
Okay,
Question, Joe. So the Schedule A then will be amended. At the mill rate will be amended to, and that's a current reflection of the 7, and that'll be amended down to the 6.
Yes.
Okay. And again, that 0.1385, which would have normally been the 0.1365, that is the gas tax. Pardon me, that's the TELUS, et cetera, having its way with that again, is it? Is it? Yeah.
okay, Councillor Bartley. Think that, Councillor Abbott.
No, I think I've said it. I said it enough. We have to do this. When Randy Deal first joined us, he told us to get an extension. I would much preferred if we did get an extension and did a good strategic plan and had something that looked more realistic going out 2 or 3 years and then work back and get all this proper way, but we didn't get that. And we've been told with maybe all kinds of threats that whether they're real or not, we don't know, but I'm not prepared to roll that dice and put us in any predicament. And as I said, we do need to get on with some things, like the paving of the roads and the grants we're trying to get to, and we need to approve the budget for some design work so we can actually apply for the grant. We've got all that stuff. We need to get back to work. So for that reason, not going to obstruct it, and you can probably read into what I'm saying, I'm going to abstain again.
Okay. Any other comments? Or we call the question? Oh, okay, all those in favor, the first reading
As amended, right?
as amended?
Amended, yeah. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Okay, carried. Okay, motion to receive the second reading as amended. Second,
Second,
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
abstain.
Okay, carried. Okay, motion to receive the third reading as amended.
Put it forward.
Moved.
Okay, second, Councillor Reuter, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Yes.
Yes.
Carried. Okay, we'll open it up to public comments. Marina, if you allow our gallery to ask any questions. Anyone in the gallery would like to ask a question before we adjourn the meeting, and now would be the time. Thank you. Oh, okay, motion to adjourn the meeting, so moved. Second,
Yes.
all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed, carried. We got a little time for your next meeting.
Yeah.